Hey guys, it's John Rips, and in this video I'm going to be talking about block in Slay the Spire. We're going through all the different resources, and this is a great fight to talk about block in because block is terrible in this fight. Let's like weak and vulnerable this guy and hit him with a strike. Block in general is a way to reduce the damage that you take overall in a fight, but unless block is actually stopping you from dying, it usually reduces the amount of damage that you deal. So it makes the fight like take longer or whatever. And right now, this enemy is an enemy that we so much just want to kill. He's vulnerable for 2 more turns. He's weakened for 2 more turns. That means he's getting a lot stronger 2 turns from now, a lot harder to kill. And he's got Enrage. This is a unique enemy, for which this is even more true than for other enemies. So whenever we play a skill, he gains 2 strength. So on this turn, we have Pommel Strike, we have a Strike. Pretend I didn't draw that other strike, and I had 4 defense in my hand right now. And we get to choose between playing a defend. Again, remove the strike here. That's not a strike. So we have 1 energy, and everything that you think about Slay the Spire says, you know, if you have energy and cards, you should probably be playing the cards, because that's what you do every turn. So we can defend here, we gain 5 block. This is actually worse than not defending at all, because he's gaining 2 strength. And we take 3 less damage this turn, but for the rest of the fight, he has 2 more strength. So in that situation, it was actually worse to block than not to block at all. And on this turn, we're going to have presumably some combination of cards. You get to choose between Bash Striking or Bash Second Winding. Exhaust all non-attack cards in your hand and gain 5 block for each. So it's, again, another 5 block. Again, we got a strike here. The point about block is that spending your resources on gaining block can prevent you from dealing damage. And early on in the game, that's especially true. Later on in the game, it can be very true too. There's an elite fight in Act 3 where both of the elites have attacks which put 2 burns in your deck. And so theoretically, if they choose to use them, they could be putting 4 burns in your deck every turn. Sometimes you just are in fights where you have to kill the other thing. This turn, sure, we could defend and stop ourselves from taking damage, but generally speaking, dealing alpha strike damage is going to be better. Okay, I didn't add that up. So, yes. Block is a nice luxury, but sometimes you have to do away with it, and that's sort of the point that I wanted to be making in general with that fight. Let's talk about some other more abstract sorts of things. So block scaling. Block doesn't scale that well in this game. There aren't very many ways to make it so you get more block per card or more block per energy. You can get a little bit more block scaling, so we can like upgrade defend. Now we gain 8 block from it. Or we can upgrade Second Wind, and now we have this card which can exhaust like 3 cards and give us 21 block for 1 energy. Second Wind shouldn't be in this deck. I'm just clicking random cards. So yeah, like we can sort of improve how much block we're getting, and in general, over the course of a run, we'll go from being able to generate like 5 to 10 block in a turn to being able to generate like, 20 block in a turn, whatever. But during the course of a fight, unless you have very specific relics or very specific powers, usually for the entire fight, you're expecting to make about the same amount of block every single turn. Or maybe even less as the fight wears on, and you are like exhausting cards which were crucial to making block, or you're becoming frail from enemy attacks, or something like that. So because of that, don't upgrade defend there. Don't make the plays that I'm making. That's not why I'm making them. Because of that, that's sort of the impetus for sometimes deciding not to block at all, is the fact that your block is not improving as the fight goes on, but the enemy might be scaling up. So the enemy might be pretty weak at the start, and then it's starting to get way, way, way stronger. Or there might be, 1, 2, 3 enemies, and the sooner you get down to 2 enemies, your stable 10 to 15 block in the turn is suddenly more valuable than it was when it was against 3 enemies, because 3 enemies are overpowering your block, and the third one's basically getting through with its full damage. So yeah, block doesn't scale that great, and that's pretty unusual. Damage typically scales up pretty rapidly in a fight, so the fact that block is somewhat stable in most decks and damage scales up informs how you're playing a lot of the time. There are ways that can be different. You can have silent runs where you're infinite and you're making infinite block. You can have ironclad runs where you have like a barricade and an entrench, and so you're not losing your block every turn and you're able to double it every turn, and all of a sudden the most block you can have is 999, and I've had it with both classes. But normally, block scaling is pretty static, especially earlier on in runs. Okay, so in general, if I had to say one sentence about block, I'd say you want to block as much as you can before it's hurting you more than it's gaining you. And that's the really iffy thing, is working out, is blocking here helping me to win this fight while taking less damage, or is it actually hurting me? Or maybe it's making me, like, it's exposing me to variants I don't need. Like, if I block here, he might put burns in my deck, and then I might just shuffle really badly and draw them on a terrible turn, and then I take a bunch of damage and maybe even die or something. That's what you have to be thinking about with block. There are lots of relics that interact with block. There are lots of potions which interact with block. We'll talk about relics later. We'll talk about potions later. There are lots of cards which change how block works. We'll talk about those a little bit more later. That's block in general.